On a bitterly cold winter evening, a group of hikers trekked through a remote mountain pass, unaware that they were about to witness an unbelievable animal rescue. As they ventured along a snow-covered trail near a fast-moving river, their eyes widened in shock as they spotted a wild bear fighting for its life. The bear, caught in the frigid currents, struggled desperately to stay afloat, its powerful paws unable to push against the icy water. Every moment seemed to pull the animal further downstream, towards certain death. But just when all hope seemed lost, a sudden burst of action shattered the tense silence. Sarah, a seasoned wildlife rescuer, saw the bear's plight from a distance. Without thinking twice, she sprang into action. Equipped with nothing but ropes, courage, and years of training, she dove into the river. The bear's survival now depended on Sarah's expertise and quick thinking. The cold water whipped around her as she swam towards a drowning animal, both the bear and Sarah fighting against nature's overwhelming forces. The rescue was nothing short of miraculous. With her team's help, Sarah managed to secure the struggling animal and pull it from the water. The bear, shivering and exhausted, could barely stand, but it was alive, a living testament to the resilience of the wild. A wild bear saved from the brink of death. The story had all the ingredients of an incredible tale of survival, but this was just the beginning. After the dramatic rescue, Sarah and her team rushed the bear to a local wildlife rehabilitation center. The animal, still weak from its near-death experience, was carefully examined and treated for hypothermia and exhaustion. The bear's chances of survival were uncertain, but Sarah's team was determined to give it the care it needed. In the days that followed, Sarah spent hours with the bear, monitoring its progress and ensuring it received everything it required to recover. The bond between rescuer and animal grew stronger as Sarah saw beyond the wild creature's instinctual fear and recognized the survival spirit that burned within it. The bear was more than just an animal. It was a symbol of hope and resilience. As the weeks passed, the bear began to regain its strength. With a steady diet, physical therapy, and constant care, the bear's condition improved remarkably. Slowly, the once exhausted creature began to move around the center's large enclosure with confidence, its fur growing shinier and its movements more graceful. One day, Sarah saw the bear take its first steps back into the open, its energy returning to full force. She couldn't help but smile. The bear, once on the brink of death, was now thriving thanks to the efforts of the dedicated team. This was the power of wildlife rescue, the ability to give a second chance to animals who had been at the mercy of nature's unforgiving forces. But as the bear healed, Sarah began to wonder, could this resilient animal ever return to its natural home? Could it survive once more in the wild? The question loomed as the time for its release was drawing nearer. Months had passed since Sarah and her team had rescued the bear from the icy waters, and now the time had come. The rehabilitation process was nearing its end, and the bear had regained its strength, health, and vitality. It was clear that the bear was ready to return to its natural habitat, where it could once again roam free. On the day of the release, Sarah and her team drove the bear to a remote part of the forest, far from human civilization. The air was crisp, and the trees stood tall, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. As Sarah opened the transport cage, the bear hesitated for a moment. It turned its head, its eyes meeting hers with a look that seemed to say, "Thank you." With a powerful lurch, the bear stepped out of the cage and into the wild, its large paws sinking into the soft earth. It moved cautiously at first, sniffing the air, adjusting to the smells of the forest. Then, like a wave of freedom crashing against the shore, the bear sprinted into the wilderness, disappearing into the trees. For Sarah, it was a bittersweet moment. She watched as the bear, once fragile and vulnerable, now stood as a symbol of resilience and strength. But there was also a sense of peace. She had given the bear a second chance at life, and that was all that mattered. As the bear vanished into the wilderness, Sarah turned to leave, knowing that this chapter of the bear's story had come to a close. But deep inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. Not for her and not for the bear. Several months passed since the bear had been released into the wild. Sarah continued her work at the rehabilitation center, but she couldn't shake the memory of the bear, the one that had survived against all odds. She wondered how it was faring in the wild, if it was thriving, or if it had encountered new challenges. One bright summer morning, As Sarah arrived at the center, she received a phone call that would change everything. A local wildlife observer had spotted a bear near the center's boundaries. But this wasn't just any bear. It was the very same one Sarah had rescued from the river months before. Heart racing, Sarah immediately headed to the area. As she approached the forest edge, she stopped dead in her tracks. There, standing in the sunlight, was the bear. But it wasn't alone. To her astonishment, the bear had brought with a small, curious cub, its fur soft and brown, eyes wide with wonder. Sarah could hardly believe her eyes. The bear had returned, and now it had a family of its own. The sight of the bear and its cub was nothing short of magical. The bear approached Sarah cautiously, its eyes meeting hers as if it were showing its gratitude. It was as though the bear had returned to share the joy of new life and to express thanks for the second chance Sarah had given it. Over the following days, Sarah observed the pair from a distance, marveling at how well the bear had adapted to life in the wild. The cub, no older than a few months, followed its mother everywhere, mimicking her every move. Sarah knew, deep down, that the bear's return wasn't just about survival. It was about a new chapter, a new family, and the circle of life continuing in the wild. The bear had brought its cub back, a gesture that was both symbolic and real. It had not forgotten Sarah's kindness and, in turn, wanted to show that life had blossomed because of the help it had received. The days following the bear's return were filled with awe. Sarah couldn't believe her eyes as she watched the bear and its cub wander through the wild with ease. The bear, now more confident and protective, moved with the grace of an animal truly at home in its environment. But what surprised Sarah the most was the deep, silent connection that seemed to exist between her and the bear, a bond formed in the moment of peril that had led to its rescue. One morning, as Sarah ventured into the forest to check on the bear and its cub, she was caught off guard. There, in the clearing, stood the bear, gazing at her from a distance. The cub played nearby, tumbling in the grass, its playful energy filling the air. The mother bear didn't move toward Sarah at first, but then something extraordinary happened. The bear took a few steps closer, its eyes steady and calm. It seemed to be acknowledging Sarah, an unspoken recognition of the kindness that had been shown to it. With deliberate slowness, the bear lowered its head and nudged the cub forward, as if to say, "Here's the future I built, the life you helped save." Sarah stood still, her heart swelling with emotion. The gesture was simple, yet profound. The bear wasn't just showing its cub. It was showing Sarah the gift of new life, a life that, in part, was made possible because of her efforts. The bond between Sarah and the bear was more than just a rescue. It was an ongoing relationship, a reminder of the delicate balance between humans and wildlife. It was a connection that transcended words, a silent acknowledgement of the power of compassion, of kindness, and of survival. As Sarah watched the pair disappear into the forest once more, she felt a deep sense of gratitude herself. The bear had given her a gift, one that couldn't be measured in words or actions. It was the gift of knowing that the wild was thriving because of the help she had given. Continue to visit the forest where the bear and its cub had been seen. Every time she went, she would pause and listen, hoping to catch a glimpse of the mother and her young one. The cub had grown rapidly, now larger and more curious about the world around it. It was clear that the little one was thriving, learning the ways of the wild under the careful guidance of its mother. For Sarah, this was more than just witnessing a wildlife success story. It was a reminder of the delicate balance of nature and how human intervention, when done with care and respect, could have a profound, lasting impact. The bear's journey from danger to freedom, from rescue to reunion, was now part of a greater story, one of conservation and hope. One day, while observing from a distance, Sarah spotted the bear and her cub near the riverbank. The cub was playing by the water, dipping its paws in and out of the stream, while the mother bear stood watch, ever vigilant. It was a peaceful scene, a perfect moment that encapsulated the essence of life in the wild. Freedom, survival, and the bond that tie everything together. As Sarah turned to leave, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The bear had returned not only to thank her for saving its life, but to show her the incredible legacy of care that had followed. From the moment the bear had been pulled from the icy waters, it had been given a second chance, and now, that chance had blossomed into new life. The cub, a symbol of survival and continuity, was a living proof of the difference one act of compassion could make. Sarah smiled, knowing that her work was part of something bigger, a movement to protect and nurture wildlife, ensuring that the wild continues to thrive for generations to come. The bond she shared with the bear and its cub was a testament to the power of wildlife conservation and the lasting impact of a single kind action.